Hello. That sounds stupid. Okay, hold on.
No, we're keeping that.
Hello. Now I sound like Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, hello, and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me is Court Winsett.
Good day to you.
And Cameron Spann.
Hi. I never know what I'm going to say. I don't know.
Well, so last episode we did was about money superstitions. And so I kind of mentioned that Friday the 13th was coming up. So if you were listening to this on our launch day, then Friday the 13th is tomorrow. And so, of course, we were talking about money superstitions. So how could we not talk about the superstition that is Friday the 13th? Or the number 13.
We are really digging our heels into like ushering in spooky season.
Oh, I mean,
Two back-to-back episodes.
Y'all know me. I'm always down for spooky seasons. I usually have a hard and fast rule. I do not do a ton of Halloween decorations until like the last part of September. But I have determined to do my office in the pastel Halloween colors. So there are some pink pumpkins on my desk now. So I'm getting there.
Fancy.
Okay, so unlucky or lucky number 13, depending on who you are. So we've got the first list, how to survive in a Friday the 13th movie. So if you're not familiar with the Friday the 13th movies, this is Jason. This is the guy that has the hockey mask. And so it's all around Lake Crystal Camp, right?
Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah. I'm dyslexic
And
today.
also, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but actually, the original Friday the 13th movie, the killer was not Jason. Jason did not come about as the murderous fiend that he is until Friday the 13th Part 2.
I forgot that because all you think about is that. And then, I mean, Mommy's really the villain.
Yeah.
She's the bad one. But, you know, I think it's more for pop culture perspective. You got Michael Myers, you got Freddy Krueger,
And
you've got Jason.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, so how are we going to survive in a Friday the 13th movie? I would also apply this to a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, Scream did a whole bit about, you know, surviving horror movies in general.
Yeah.
And rule number one would be, obviously, don't split up. Never go somewhere by yourself. And especially don't go somewhere by yourself that happens to be, like, dark and spooky.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna run into the warehouse that has all the hanging knives from the ceiling. That was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
like,
sure was.
What are you doing?
Next way to survive in a Friday the 13th movie would be avoid the woods at night, because apparently Jason loves good mood lighting with the moon.
It's amazing the number of times I've seen Jason walk on a leisurely stroll through the forest, and despite the fact that he is just strolling, he's catching up on the girl who is frantically running away as fast as she can.
He's got a long stride.
It's the same thing as Michael Myers. He doesn't run.
That's wild that they never run.
They're just very like, they just walk. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think it's the same thing. Leatherface, that's his name. Skip the skinny dipping. The splash you hear, not a fish. It's Jason lurking below.
Oh, indeed.
I'd throw in skinny dipping, but it's also if somebody's having like sex, like
Well, yeah, I mean, if we want to go there.
they're going a little, acting a little naughty.
Basically,
drinking.
Anything that is sort of considered sinful, drinking, smoking, having relations, just generally prancing around naked is bound to get you stabbed by Jason.
And that's usually because they've split up now. Like little boy and girl have decided to go split up and do their own little thing. It's like, oh, we're not scared. Let's take this opportunity to be naughty. And
Yeah. Number 4 actually is stay sober. Alcohol slows down your reaction time. Keep your wits sharp if you want to make it to the end credits. So yeah, that's
Keep your wits sharper than Jason's machete.
yeah. Maintain your cardio, people, because if you need to go on a jog away from Jason, then you want to make sure that you can run for a long, long time.
There are 4 words to never say, and those words would be, I'll be right back.
Oh,
That's a no-no. Newsflash, you won't be.
Indeed.
keep a weapon handy. Make sure you have something to always defend yourself with. I mean, that's smart.
Is there a certain weapon that works well against Jason? He just keeps coming back.
I mean, yeah, well, gosh, I don't even know what number movie they're on
been a
now.
million.
But he was originally killed, like, I think the original time that everybody said, like, okay, Jason is dead. This was it, was Friday the 13th Part 4, which was called The Final Chapter. Had a very young Corey Feldman in it, and Corey Feldman is actually the one who did the murdering of Jason ultimately. But he came back to life. He actually didn't come back to life until part 6. And since he came back to life, they've pretty much just...
He's immortal.
He's unkillable.
Did you ever see Freddy vs. Jason?
I did, but I don't really remember how it...
I mean, he beat Freddy Krueger. He won. He's immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freddy's...
beat the Nightmare King. Yeah, you can't die.
He is the nightmare.
Yeah.
How's a teen supposed to kill him?
Yeah. Blow him out an airlock like on Alien.
Yeah.
Don't trust the quiet moments. If it gets quiet, that means that that Jason's probably around the corner, whispering, "Kill, kill, 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 kill." So that eerie calm, that eerie calm usually. That eerie calm usually means Jason is about to appear again. The reason I'm laughing is because the note actually says, that eerie clam.
Oh, those eerie clams in that lake.
Yeah.
I have like PTSD now. Just you're never safe. It's like, don't enjoy the calmness. Yeah. Don't go outside.
Well, you hear that phrase, the calm before the storm. That's like talking about tornadoes, but it's also like all of a sudden you got a bunch of kids in the house and then it gets quiet. You're like, what's going on? So I think a lot of times it's don't trust the quiet. What's happening? What should be happening?
The last on the list is the most obvious. If you see a hockey mask, run.
Yep, that is true. Most definitely.
Hockey mask or you see mama.
Hockey masks are bad.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the origin of Friday the 13th fears, and we're not talking about the franchise anymore. We're talking about the actual fear around the date Friday the 13th. So the fear is thought to come from a mix of Christian traditions and Norse mythology.
Okay.
The Vikings are kings of that.
Some say the superstition comes from the Last Supper, where Judas, the 13th guest, betrayed Jesus. The Knights Templar were also arrested on Friday the 13th in 1307. So there's a lot of stuff that goes with this. This is one of those that there's a lot of different theories behind where it actually came from.
Well, what are y'all's thoughts on the number 13? Like, there are skyscrapers where the elevator skips the 13th
Yeah, there's
floor.
no 13 floors.
Like, to me, it kind of goes back to the last episode where I'm like, I don't really believe in luck or superstition. To me, it's a little mumbo jumbo. I don't put that much of my brain power on a specific number.
Yeah, I am not inclined to be worried about the number 13. Because, one of the other tropes in horror movies is if you don't, like, especially in the Scream movies, if you don't buy into the rules and you flaunt the rules, then you will end up being, judged heavily. So I don't want to push my luck, but I don't generally care.
It's fun, Friday the 13th,
Sure.
The idea of
Absolutely.
it. Katie, where are you on the number 13?
And me being a spooky girl, I like Friday the 13th. I think that it kind of, and we're going to talk about it later in this episode, it definitely has an impact on people. And I think a lot of times people will use it as a blame, like, oh, that was a Friday the 13th. And we're going to talk about in a minute, like, people are terrified by this because of different reasons, just as people who are superstitious about other things. I think that a lot of it is it's the power you put towards it. And so if you want to make 13 a bad number, then you're going to believe it. You're going to see stuff like that. I also believe that there are powers between the different numbers and things like that. And so I enjoy when I see a hotel and it's got a 13th floor or a building that has a 13th floor, things like that. But I also then very much notice when it doesn't. So I'm on the mix of it. I think that it then goes back to like traditions and beliefs and just those hidden little things that we do. But it's also sometimes excuses of like, oh, well, that was on a Friday the 13th, or I can't do anything that day because it's Friday the 13th. And we have Friday the 13th a lot. And I think a lot of times people get caught off guard by it, or you don't realize it until someone says, like, they may say like October 13th. Yeah, September 13th. But till somebody puts Friday the 13th and you're like, ooh. And it may be a microsecond of like, ooh, that's kind of a spooky day.
Yeah.
Okay, so phobias around the date.
I want this one.
You
Say it.
take it, baby.
Say it.
I'm gonna crash and burn. Okay, the fear is paraskevedecatriophobia. It's probably not super correct, but you can kind of break it down. You've got the deca, which is 10, the tria, which is 3, phobia, which is fear. It begins with para, which is kind of the abnormal. I'm caught on this skeva. Paraskeva decatriophobia.
Yeah, I don't know what that skeevy.
Skeevies. That's with that eerie clam.
Skevidicotrophobia.
Yep. So obviously it's a phobia, just as people have phobias of heights, of the number 6, like random phobias. Somebody has created this ridiculous word, but I really would think somebody would not say, I have
Skevidicotrophobia.
I'll say I have the fear of Friday the 13th.
Let's go around the table and each of us give it a try. This will be fun.
Oh,
Come
no.
on, just try it.
Paraskevidicotrophobia.
Paraskevidicatriophobia.
Katniss Everdeen.
I don't know. It's estimated that millions of people are so superstitious about this day that they avoid traveling, making big purchases, or even going to work. I did read somewhere that flights are super cheap on this day because a lot of people do not like flying on Friday the 13th.
I wish I'd thought of that because I could have flown somewhere this weekend.
What if you flew on flight 666 on Friday the 13th?
They just retired Flight 666.
Did they?
Yeah, like
That
a
ticket
couple
would
years
cost
ago, I think.
$0.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. So you could take financial gain of this and fly somewhere on the 13th if you don't have superstitions on it.
We always tie it back to personal finance.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, the stock market in Friday the 13th. We are a financial podcast. So October 13th, 1989, Black Friday. So it's Black Friday, but Friday the 13th. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped nearly 7% due to a buyout deal falling through, sparking panic in the markets. The significant decline on Friday the 13th contributes to its infamous reputation. While there's no concrete evidence that the stock market performed worse on Friday the 13th, the perception of bad luck can cause some investors to act cautiously. So I'll be very interested to see how our investors are acting on Friday the 13th tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes.
My wife was born on Friday the 13th.
Really?
And she's an angel.
She is an angel. So she breaks that. Okay, financial losses tied to this day. It's reported that Friday the 13th causes an estimated $800 million to $900 million in lost revenue due to people avoiding flights, major purchases, contracts on this day, showing how fear influences behavior even on modern times. And so it's like I talked about on the last episode, like there's different cultures that can't buy a house on a certain day or, needs to make sure houses are facing a certain way. There's a lot of different traditions, I would say, that cause this. And so it could be like, oh, no, I can't close on Friday the 13th. I can do the 12th. I can do the next Monday, but nope. So it's interesting to put it in financial perspectives. $900 million.
Yep, that's a pretty significant little chunk that gets pulled from pockets on Fridays the 13th. On Friday the 13th.
And so actually, a fun little fact, on Friday, April 13th, 2029, a large asteroid will fly close enough to Earth to be visible without a telescope in the Eastern Hemisphere, according to NASA. That'll be an interesting day.
That should be interesting. Okay, so Friday the 13th in pop culture. We already talked about Friday the 13th, the horror movie, or movies. So the franchise altogether, it says that it's grossed nearly $500 million at the box office, which really, for the number of Friday the 13th movies they put out, that number sounds like not at all impressive, really. I think there are at least 10 movies that go under the name Friday the 13th. There may be 11 if you include Rob Zombie's redo of Friday the 13th. But just of the movies that go under the name Friday the 13th, if there are 10 or 11, 500 million, that's not a lot.
So, a month has a Friday the 13th if and only if it begins on a Sunday.
Okay.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's fun.
Good to know.
And in addition to the Prague, whatever word we said before, there's also another word for the fear of Friday the 13th called Frigga-triskaidekaphobia. Frigga was the name of the Norse goddess for whom Friday is named, and triskaidekaphobia means the fear of the number 13.
Interesting.
A theory recently proclaimed as historical facts in the novel The Da Vinci Code is that on Friday, October 13th, 1307, officers of King Philip of France raided hundreds of homes of the Knights Templar, which we talked about before, imprisoning them on charges of illegal activities. Though the charges weren't proven, more than 100 died from terrible torture. And for a month to have a Friday the 13th, you can have in a year, you could have up to 1 or as many as 3 in each year. So
That's cool.
that's kind of some fun facts.
I was curious. I just Googled June 6, 1906 to see if anything happened. That's 666. Nothing happened. All right. Back to Friday the 13th in pop culture. You want to hear about the Alfred Hitchcock connection?
Of course.
Sure.
This genius filmmaker has made some of the best suspense films in the history of Hollywood. And it just so happens he was born on August 13th, 1899, which was a Friday.
Very cool. Before we get to Nicole's last thing, there's a couple other fun facts I want to throw in here. According to the British Medical Journal, there's a significant increase in traffic-related accidents when the date is Friday the 13th. And pagans actually find 13 a lucky number, which because of the parallel of the number of full moons in a year. Italian pop culture, Friday the 17th is considered a day of bad luck. So they're not looking at the 13th. And in Spanish-speaking countries, instead of Friday, it's Tuesday the 13th is what they consider bad luck. But beloved rapper Tupac was killed on Friday, September 13th. Or was he? There's debate about that. And Friday the 13th death was that of Julia Child in August 2004. And Mary-Kate and Ashley were also born on Friday the 13th. And other celebrities, Steve Buscemi, Abby Spann.
Yes.
Kate Walsh. We already talked about Alfred Hitchcock. And so, there's been a lot of interesting things. So, of course, we've got to talk about the last one that Nicole put on here because the 13 has changed its tune recently for some people.
Har. That was
Tune.
Get it? Okay. Anyway, yes. So Taylor Swift, if it's involving Nicole, it involves Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift's lucky number is 13 because she was born on December 13th. Her first album went gold in 13 weeks, and she used to actually write the number 13 on her hand before every performance for good luck. So she obviously took that whole bad luck idea and turned it around for herself. And
yeah, now you see everybody wearing 13 on their hand. And so she's kind of changing the tune where I wonder if some of these people that are putting 13 on their hand are thinking about the superstition of 13. And do they look at Friday the 13th now as, it's Taylor Swift Friday? All it takes is somebody to kind of twist the idea of it, because there's two sides to every story. Obviously, we think Friday the 13th. I will continue to associate Friday the 13th with some kind of spooky vibes. I had the opportunity many, many years ago, the old historical theater in Memphis, the Orpheum. We actually hosted a double feature on Friday the 13th. We showed some old horror movies, and I got to spook out the theater, and it was great because it's already a haunted theater. So,
hey.
Yeah.
Question. I never saw the movie Freaky Friday. Does that take place on the 13th?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
It's just a random Friday.
Yeah, it's just random.
Freaky.
Yeah.
That was a whole, them transferring bodies kind of, and
Oh, yeah.
so that's not the same.
One in a long line of movies about parents and their children swapping bodies.
Okay, so maybe go book your flight for flying out on Friday the 13th.
Absolutely. I'm
And
going to go, maybe I'll fly up to New York for the weekend.
be aware of the history of Friday the 13th with the stock market being Black Friday back in 1989, which many, many people remember. I was almost one at that point. Any other things about Friday the 13th? Are you guys excited? What are y'all going to do tomorrow?
I'm not doing nothing.
You want to work?
Except for working.
I'm going to work.
Yeah. I wish that we could say like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing,
I can put
for
whatever
whom
you
the
want.
bell tolls or something.
All right, I'll put a freaky bell in.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing scream. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Cameron, Katie, or Nicole, then please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We have pictures on there, we have our bios, and we also have a place where you can drop a comment, suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk about, or suggest a guest you'd like us to have on. But hey, I mentioned pictures. If you like pictures, we've also got an Instagram handle. That handle is at BullCast Podcast, and we have an X handle. That handle is at BullCast Podcast as well. Finally, at least finally as far as social media is concerned, we have a Facebook page. That Facebook page is BullCast the Podcast. But as we always say, that is Cameron, Katie, Court, and Nicole, we all work for a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out even more about any of the four of us, or if you'd like to find out about Pickler Wealth Advisors, what we do, what we could possibly do for you, find out about our amazing team or our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything you need to be safe from prowling Jasons. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.